Hey everyone, so I know that you've probably done the activity, or I hope you've done the activity, where you've taken this sheet, opened Desmos, and tried to sketch these graphs on your own before watching this video. So if you haven't done that already, I think you should pause the video and go try Desmos yourself, because it means a lot more when you actually try it to do it on your own, and then come back to this and check out what I had to say about it. In terms of the vertex form, I've written this y equals a bracket x minus h squared plus k. Now in this case, these are all, this is kind of the general formula, and these are all values or numbers. And the value of the number, or what number it actually is, has an effect on what the graph will look like. So if you've already done the activity, you've seen what h and k sort of do to it, and I just want to sum it up for you. So if you did this first one, you would have graphed x squared plus 2, and x squared plus 4. Now when you did that, you would have noticed that x squared gave you something like this. So that's x squared. Your x squared plus 2 looked like this. And your x squared plus 4 looked like this. Okay, same shape. It just moved it up the y-axis. So what you should have got is what happens as k gets bigger. You could have wrote something like this. The parabola moves up the y-axis. And you would have noticed that the 2 and the 4, this one was at 2 and this one was at 4. So it actually told you how many units that it went up. So k, that value that's right there, which is in the k position, tells you how far it moves up. If you did the second part, you would have noticed that the original looked like this, same as the last one. Your second one, the minus 2, probably looked like this, and the minus 4 looked like this, where this was minus 4 and this was at minus 2. So what happened as k became negative and got smaller, the parabola moved down. And it actually moves down k units. So when you get to the bottom, to summarize it, I just want to make sure that you've summarized it correctly. If k is positive, so if this value here is positive, then the parabola is translated. So translated just means moved. It's kind of a fancy math word for it. Translated up. And it's translated up k units. So k tells you how far up it goes. If k is negative, then the parabola is translated or moved down k units. Okay, so k tells us how the parabola moves vertically, whether it goes up or down. Positive goes up, negative goes down. So then if you did the second part, I just moved over to the second page. If you did the second part of this investigation, this should be H, sorry guys, we would have graphed these 3 equations into Desmos, and you should have noticed this. The first one was here. That's our x squared, or our original one. X minus 2 would have been over here and touched at 2. And then the other one would have done this. So you should have noticed that the parabola stayed the same shape, but it moved to the right. So what you could say here is that the parabola moved to the right. Now, the one thing I want you guys to make note of is that notice that in this case it's a minus h, so it makes you think that it's going to be minus and move to the left, but it actually doesn't. It moves to the right. And in this case h is positive. So this is h for the one and this is h for the other. So it's positive 2 and positive 4. So even though it's x minus h, it moved in the positive direction. So our h is actually considered positive. So this makes more sense when we look at the vertex, and the vertex here is at plus 2 and the vertex here is at plus 4. You would have noticed in the same, if we move down to the second part, you can probably guess by now what's going to happen is that the x plus 2 actually moved this way and hit it at minus 2, and then this one hit it at minus 4. So what happens when it's x plus h? In this case, h is negative. The parabola moved to the left. So it moved into the negative direction. So because it moved in the negative direction, h is negative. So h in this case is negative 2 and negative 4. So h is kind of that little bit more complicated one where it actually does opposite of what you think it's going to do. K moved it up and down. If it was positive, it went up. If it was negative, it went down. But in this case, if h is positive, it looks like x minus h, but it's really positive. And for this one, x plus h, h is actually negative because it moved it into the negative direction. So to summarize the h part of it, in the vertex form, y equals a x minus h squared plus k. If h is positive, then x minus h, so h is positive in this case, and the parabola is translated, again it's moved, translated to the right, h units. So whatever h is, it moves that many over. And then if h is negative, then it's going to look like this, x plus h, and the parabola is translated to the left, h units. Okay, so just be careful with that one because it kind of does opposite what you think it's going to do. There's some practice questions, and there is another little investigation for you to look at what A does, and I will go over that one as well. Okay, but try it first before you watch the video.